Okay, seriously. What is that? Reese stared, scrubbing a hand over his face like he could wipe away the sight. Coiled possessively on the rumpled thermal sheets of his narrow bunk was Lyra, the shimmering, vaguely reptilian alien he'd charitably decided not to space after finding her clinging to the wreckage of a smuggler's barge 3 weeks ago. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the cluster of opalescent, grapefruit-sized spheres nestled protectively within the curve of her body. They pulsed with a soft, internal light, slick and gelatinous-looking. Eggs, definitely eggs, laid square in the middle of his damn bed. Lyra turned her head, her large, obsidian eyes fixing on him. The bioluminescent pattern swirling beneath her semi-translucent skin shifted from placid turquoise to an alert, proprietary gold. A low thrum vibrated through the deck plating beneath his bare feet. She extended a delicate three-fingered hand, gesturing towards the glowing clutch, then pointed directly at his chest. A synthesized voice, distorted and tinny from the jury-rig translator clipped near the sonic emitter on her throat slit, crackled to life. Ours belong Reese. His brain stalled, rebooted, stalled again. Ours? What do you mean ours? Those things came out of you. Unless you've been hiding some very surprising anatomical features under that glowy skin, I had absolutely zero part in that production. He waved frantically at the eggs. Lyra tilted her head, a gesture he was learning meant curiosity, tinged with something like amusement. The gold deepened, swirling faster. She uncoiled slightly, fluid and silent, sliding closer to the edge of the bunk. Her scent, a weirdly appealing mix of ozone and rain-soaked earth, intensified. Reese. Father. The word was clearer this time, less static. Father, him. He backed up until his shoulders hit the cold metal bulkhead of his cramped cabin. No. Absolutely not. See, where I come from, fathering involves participation, specific physical participation, which, need I remind you, has not occurred. He held up his hands defensively. Lyra flowed off the bunk onto the deck, landing silently. She was taller than he expected when fully upright, easily reaching his shoulder. Her skin shimmered, reacting to his agitation, patterns flickering like static on an old screen. She reached for him again, her touch cool against his bare arm. A jolt like low-grade static electricity zipped up his nerves. He flinched back. Don't touch the merchandise, she paused, fingers hovering inches from his skin. Her glow softened slightly to a questioning violet. The translator crackled again. Resonance, strong, good, make life. She gestured back towards the eggs, then tapped her own chest, then his. Connect, make. He stared at her, then at the pulsating spheres on his bed. Resonance. Was she saying his vibes knocked her up? You've got to be kidding me. I find you half dead, patch you up, give you synth paste and a warm corner, and you repay me by laying resonant alien space bobbies in my rack. Is this some kind of weird alien thank you card? Lyra blinked slowly, her version of a shrug maybe. She glided past him, back towards the bunk, coiling around the eggs again, her movements sinuous and utterly alien. The golden light pulsed protectively. She touched one of the spheres gently, and it seemed to glow a fraction brighter in response. She looked back at him, her expression unreadable but intensely focused. The translator remained silent, but the message was clear. Mine, ours, stay away, stay close. His ship suddenly felt 10 sizes too small. He needed coffee. And possibly a very strong drink, and maybe a manual on interstellar reproductive anomalies, because his strange, glowy, maybe not a pet alien companion had just presented him with paternity papers written in pulsating goo. Reese slammed his mug down on the console, sloshing lukewarm synth caf onto the already stained surface. Okay, Lyra, he began, trying for authoritative and landing somewhere near exasperated panic. We need to talk. Properly. No weird glowy hand-waving or resonant fatherhood declarations. He turned in the pilot's chair to face her. She was currently examining the ship's primary navigation array with intense curiosity, one delicate finger tracing the glowing conduits. Her own internal light shifted, mirroring the blue pulses of the system. Talk, the translator crackled, the synthesized voice slowly smoothing out as it adapted to her vocalizations, resonations, whatever alien thing she did. Talk good, Reese, talk. She straightened, turning her full attention to him. The patterns under her skin swirled, settling into a calmer blend of blues and greens. Right, talking, about the clutch. He gestured vaguely back towards his cabin where the eggs were presumably still glowing away on his ruined sheets. You said ours, you said father, explain, use small words, preferably words that don't involve cosmic vibes getting you pregnant. Lyra tilted her head. Not pregnant. She touched her own abdomen, then shook her head slightly. The translator struggled, then offered. Generation. Life requires spark. Vessel, she tapped herself again, and catalyst. Her gaze flickered towards him, intense and unwavering. Reese, catalyst. So I'm a catalyst, he muttered, rubbing his temples. Great, fantastic, like adding baking soda to alien vinegar results in that. He threw his hands up. What does being a catalyst even entail? Do I owe child support? Do I have to teach them how to fly a freighter? Are they gonna glow? Lyra glided closer, her movements unnervingly silent on the metal deck. She stopped directly in front of his chair, invading his personal space bubble without hesitation. Her presence was intense. The faint ozone scent, the low thrumming energy he could almost feel humming off her, the constant mesmerizing shift of light beneath her skin. Reese, signature, strong, felt safe. She reached out slowly, cautiously this time. He stiffened but didn't pull away immediately. Her cool fingers brushed against the back of his hand where it rested on the arm of the chair. That faint bioelectric tingle again. Not unpleasant exactly, just weird and distracting. When hurt, scared, Reese sound like homelight. Homelight? Was that a place, a feeling, a frequency? The translator offered no clarification. So because I sounded like a porch lamp, you decided to lay eggs. He tried to keep the sarcasm light, but the situation was fraying his nerves thin. She didn't react to the tone, just maintained that steady, unnerving eye contact. Her fingers curled slightly, a feather-like grip on his hand. Need strong catalyst for clutch to quicken, to live. Her glow pulsed softly, a warm gold spreading from her chest. Reese, good catalyst. He pulled his hand back, needing the distance. Right, good catalyst, lucky me. He stood up abruptly, needing to move. Look, whatever this resonance thing is, it's not normal for me. This whole situation is insane. He paced the small bridge, feeling trapped. I picked you up because you looked like you needed help. I thought you were just some exotic creature. Maybe injured, maybe lost. Not a sentient being about to turn my bunk into a freaking hatchery. Lyra watched him, her head tracking his movements. Her expression, if she even had them in the human sense, remained impassive, but the lights under her skin flickered faster, hints of violet and sharp yellow mixing with the blue. Agitation. Annoyance. Not. Creature, she stated, the translator voice firmer now. Am Lyra, Lumina species, not pet. Yeah, I'm getting that loud and clear now, Reese retorted. So Lumina Lyra, what happens next? Do these catalyst eggs need anything, special food, a specific temperature? Do they explode? She flowed towards the viewport, looking out at the stardusted black. Need warmth, need Reese resonance, close. She turned back to him, her gaze pinning him. Need you, great, just great. His alien rescue wasn't just sentient. She was apparently bonded to him in some bizarre, cosmic way, and now expected him to co-parent a clutch of glowing goo balls conceived via good vibes. His life had officially gone off the rails and plunged headfirst into a nebula of weird. Reese needed off the ship, fresh air, even the recycled, vaguely metallic tang of station air seemed vital. He needed parts, too. The atmospheric scrubbers were wheezing again, and the nav compensator had developed an annoying habit of listing 3 degrees to port. Problem was Lyra. Leaving her alone felt risky. Not just because of the eggs, but because her distress signals when he'd first tried locking her in the cabin had involved making every light panel on the bridge strobe violently and emitting a high-pitched whine that vibrated his teeth. He found her coiling possessively around the main console, her light patterns shifting rapidly. Okay, listen up, Sparky, he said, grabbing his worn synth leather jacket. I have to go planetside. Station dock. Get parts. Fix ship. You, he pointed a stern finger at her, stay here. Hidden, quiet. No light shows, no sonic booms, understand. Lyra unspooled herself, flowing towards him. The translator crackled. Reese, leave alone. A definite note of anxiety colored the synthesized words. Her glow shifted to a worried, pulsing lavender. Yes, alone, it's a space station, full of people, people who might get twitchy seeing a 6-foot glow stick wandering around. You need to stay out of sight. He tried to edge past her towards the ramp controls. She sidestepped, blocking his path. Take Lyra. No, absolutely not. Too dangerous for you. And for his continued freedom from galactic authorities who might ask awkward questions about undocumented egg-laying aliens. She reached out, her fingers brushing his jacket sleeve. The material seemed to faintly shimmer where she touched it. Lyra, help, strong, protect Reese. He almost laughed. Protect me? From what? Overpriced parts dealers and bad station coffee. He gently but firmly pushed her hand away. Stay here, that's an order, sort of. Her glow flared bright yellow, a sharp warning pulse. Not pet, not take orders. Okay, fine, not an order, a strong suggestion from your catalyst. He tried a different tack. Look, if someone finds you, they might take you away, hurt you, hurt the clutch. He hated playing that card, but her possessiveness over the eggs was the strongest leverage he had. The yellow softened, cycling back through anxious lavender to a troubled blue. She looked back towards his cabin, then at him. The internal conflict was visible in the swirling light. Stay, she finally conceded, the word clipped. Hidden, quiet. Good, excellent, cooperative. He gave her a cautious thumbs up, which she regarded with utter incomprehension. I won't be long, just behave. He practically sprinted down the ramp before she could change her mind, the heavy clang echoing in the suddenly too quiet cargo bay. He needed this break, needed the anonymity of the station, needed a few hours where he wasn't constantly dealing with bioluminescent mood swings and the impending arrival of whatever hatched from those things. Just a quick, uncomplicated supply run. What could possibly go wrong? He should have known better than to even think it. Docking fees paid, Reese navigated the grimy corridors of XK7 Transfer Hub, dodging dockworkers, shifty-eyed smugglers, and the occasional patrol drone. He kept his head down, located his usual parts dealer, a four-armed Groxian named Skreeg who always overcharged but usually had what he needed, and haggled for the scrubbers and compensator. Transaction complete, parts tucked into his carry sack, he was heading back, weaving through the crowds near the docking ring, when a sudden tension prickled the air. Two figures in drab gray uniforms, carrying scanning devices, were moving methodically down the row of docked freighters, performing spot checks. Standard procedure, maybe, but Reese's gut clenched. The rusty bucket wasn't exactly regulation-abiding at the best of times, and now it contained an undocumented alien and a clutch of mysterious glowing eggs. He picked up his pace, trying to look casual, invisible. They were getting closer. One of the officers paused near his ship's docking clamp, raising the scanner. Reese's heart hammered against his ribs. Don't see anything. Don't detect anything. Just as the officer aimed the scanner at the bucket's hull, a brilliant, localized pulse of emerald green light flared from inside his ship, visible even through the reinforced viewport. It lasted only a second, accompanied by a barely audible thrum. The scanner in the officer's hand fizzled, screen going dark. He swore, tapping it uselessly. His partner glanced over. Malfunction. Looks like it. Cheap junk. First officer gave the scanner a final disgusted shake and moved on, gesturing for his partner to follow. Let's just finish the sweep. Reese didn't wait. He scrambled up the ramp, punching the close sequence the second he was inside. Lyra was waiting for him, coiled tightly in the center of the cargo bay, her glow a low, pulsing red. Alarm, anger, the translator was silent. What the hell was that? He demanded, dropping the parts sack with a clang. That light show, they almost scanned the ship. Lyra flowed towards him, her red glow intensifying. She didn't stop until she was pressed against him, coiling lightly around his legs, her hands pressing flat against his chest. He could feel the vibration deep in his bones, a low, powerful hum. Her head rested against his shoulder, the obsidian eyes closed. The translator finally spoke, the voice rough with static as if the pulse had drained her. Sensed, probe, hostile, protect nest, protect Reese. He was frozen, pinned by her unexpected embrace, the sheer alienness of it warring with the undeniable sense of safety. She had shielded the ship, shielded him from discovery. The red glow slowly softened, shifting towards a warm, deep orange like embers. He could feel the tension draining out of her, replaced by a palpable wave of relief, almost exhaustion, and something else. Need. It radiated from her touch, from the light pulsing against him, a silent, overwhelming plea for reassurance, for connection. He found his hand hesitantly rising, settling awkwardly on the smooth, cool curve of her back. The light under his palm flared brighter, warmer. Oh, he was in so much trouble. He found himself back on the bridge, Lyra coiled loosely in the co-pilot's chair, watching him work. The station was receding behind them, XK-7 just another speck in the starfield. He'd installed the new parts quickly, needing the familiar routine of ship maintenance to ground himself after the intensity of her protective embrace. She hadn't let go easily. It had taken several minutes of awkward reassurance, murmuring stupid things like "it's okay, they're gone," before she'd finally unspooled herself, leaving him feeling strangely bereft and utterly confused. Now she watched him recalibrate the nav compensator, her glow a steady, soft blue. The earlier tension seemed gone, replaced by a quiet curiosity. "Reese, fix ship," the translator offered. "Trying to," he grunted, tightening a connection. "Thanks to your little light trick back there, at least we didn't get boarded. But whatever you did, it seemed to take a lot out of you." He glanced at her. The usual vibrant energy wasn't quite there, her light seemed dimmer, the pattern slower. She made a soft clicking sound. Small pulse, drain minimal. She shifted, extending a tendril-like appendage he hadn't seen before from beneath her arm. It was tipped with fine, feathery sensors that seemed to taste the air. It wavered near the console he was working on. "Ship, hurt here." He paused. "Hurt? No, it's just out of alignment, needs adjustment." The tendril touched the console panel right beside his hand. A faint tracery of green light, similar to the pulse she'd emitted earlier but much fainter, flowed from the tip, sinking into the circuitry. The diagnostic display flickered, numbers stabilizing instantly. The annoying 3-degree list vanished from the attitude indicator. Reese stared. "How? How did you do that?" Lyra retracted the tendril, her blue glow brightening slightly, infused with threads of pleased gold. "Lumina sense energy flow, can soothe disruption." She looked at him expectantly, like a child showing off a new trick. He ran a diagnostic check, perfect alignment. Better than he could usually manage with manual calibration. "So, you're an energy whisperer too. Anything else I should know? Do you photosynthesize, communicate with space whales?" His sarcasm was weaker this time, edged with genuine astonishment. She tilted her head, the translator struggling for a moment. "Space whales, noisy, pretty patterns, not talkative," he blinked. Had she actually understood that, or was the translator just getting freakishly good at interpreting his nonsense? Before he could ask, an alarm blared, a proximity warning. A ship dropping out of hyperspace nearby, too nearby. Adrenaline spiked through him. "Damn it, who's that?" He slammed his hand on the sensor controls, bringing up the external view. A sleek black vessel, unmarked, bristling with energy signatures that screamed bad news. Definitely not standard patrol or commercial traffic. Lyra went rigid, her glow instantly shifting to a harsh, defensive crimson. She uncoiled, flowing silently to stand beside his chair, eyes fixed on the screen. The low thrumming vibration started again, stronger this time. "They hunt," the translator stated, the voice flat cold. "Hunt Lyra." Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Reese's surprise. "Hunt her? Who? Why?" The black ship launched something, a probe maybe, or a weapon. It streaked towards them. "Shields," Reese yelled, diverting power. The particle shield shimmered into existence just as the projectile hit, rocking the bucket violently. Red lights flashed across the console. Shields holding, but that packed a punch. Lyra hissed, a sound utterly unlike her usual clicks or the translator's voice. Her entire body pulsed with intense red light. She raised her hands, palms facing the viewport. Energy crackled around her fingertips, ozone filling the small bridge. "They want specimen, want potential." She glanced at him, her eyes burning. "Want clutch." Protective fury surged through Reese, hot and unexpected. His clutch, his Lyra. No way in hell was he letting these bastards take her. "Hang on," shouted, shoving the throttle forward, banking hard to port, trying to put distance between them and the attacker. Lasers stitched across the space where they'd been moments before. Lyra kept her hands raised, the crimson light around her intensifying, coalescing. "Need focus," she said, her voice strained, a mix of her own sound and the translator. "Disrupt their systems. Buy time." Reese weaved the freighter through phantom asteroid debris, pushing the old engines harder than they were ever meant to go. "Do it." He yelled back. She threw her hands forward. A wave of pure, blinding crimson energy erupted from her, washing over the bridge through the hull towards the enemy ship. It wasn't a destructive blast, more like an overwhelming sensory overload, an EMP of pure bioenergy. On the view screen, the black ship abruptly veered off course, its running lights flickering erratically. It looked stunned. Lyra crumpled, falling against his chair, her light dimming to a faint, exhausted flicker. The crimson vanished, leaving only a weak, pale blue. The thrumming stopped. Reese spared a glance down at her, his heart pounding with fear and a strange, fierce pride. She was panting, her form less defined, almost hazy, but she'd done it. She stopped them, at least for a moment. He focused back on the controls, pushing the ship towards the nearest navigational hazard, a dense ion nebula. They could lose them in there. Maybe. He hoped. He reached down blindly, his hand finding her cool shoulder. "You okay, Sparky?" Her hand came up, weakly gripping his wrist. The translator was offline, probably overloaded by her pulse. But he felt it, a faint tremor of exhaustion, of fear, but underneath, a stubborn flicker of defiance. Alive, safe, together. They plunged into the crackling chaos of the Ion Nebula. Static washed over the sensors, blinding them as much as their pursuers. Reese cut the main engines, letting their momentum carry them deeper into the electrically charged clouds. Behind them, he hoped, the black ship would hesitate, unwilling to risk the navigational hazards and sensor ghosts. For now, they were hidden. Silence descended on the bridge, broken only by the crackle of cosmic static against the hull and Lyra's shallow breathing. She was still slumped against his chair, her light a fragile, barely there luminescence like a dying ember. Worry gnawed at Reese. She'd expended so much energy, first shielding the ship at the station, then that massive pulse against the hunters. He gently eased her away from the chair, kneeling beside her on the deck. "Lyra, hey, talk to me, or glow at me, something." She stirred, her obsidian eyes opening slowly. They looked dull, lacking their usual depth. Tried to push herself up, but her limbs seemed weak, uncoordinated. He put a hand on her shoulder. "Easy, just rest. You did good back there, really good." He wasn't sure if she understood with the translator down. She made a soft, weary sound, a low hum that vibrated faintly against his hand. She reached out, her fingers weakly tracing the line of his jaw. Her touch was colder than usual. The faint bioelectric tingle was absent. Alarm sharpened his worry. "You're drained. You need energy, food." What? He thought back to her words. Lumina sense energy. Flow. Did she absorb it somehow? Did she need a source? She shook her head slightly, a slow, tired movement. Her eyes slid closed again. Then a flicker of movement caught his eye, back towards his cabin, the eggs. A soft, insistent pulsing light emanated from the doorway, brighter than before, more rhythmic. Instinct, sharp and sudden, told him what she needed. Resonance, her clutch, maybe him. He hesitated for only a second. Scooping her up was surprisingly easy. She felt lighter than she looked, almost ethereal. He carried her quickly through the ship, the pulsing light from his cabin growing stronger, warmer, drawing them in. The eggs were glowing intensely now, a rich, vibrant gold casting dancing shadows on the bulkheads. They seemed to hum with energy, a silent chorus calling to their mother. He gently laid Lyra down on the deck beside the bunk, near the warmth and light of the clutch. Immediately, a change began. The golden light from the egg seemed to flow towards her, bathing her in its warmth. The faint blue of her own glow responded, strengthening almost imperceptibly like a spark catching dry tinder. She sighed, a long, low sound of relief, and curled instinctively towards the eggs, one hand resting protectively amongst the spheres. The connection was visible, tangible, a flow of energy from the developing clutch back to the one who gave them life. Reese watched, fascinated and relieved. He sank down onto the edge of the bunk, careful not to disturb the scene. He felt like an intruder, yet inextricably part of this strange, alien tableau, the catalyst, the protector, the dad. Lyra's eyes opened again, clearer this time. She looked from the eggs to him, her gaze lingering. A tendril, stronger now, emerged and touched his knee. This time the faint tingle returned, a spark of her returning vitality. He didn't pull away. He covered her cool fingers with his own hand. A sense of raw, unfiltered emotion flowed from her touch: gratitude, exhaustion, fear, and a deep, resonant connection that went beyond words, beyond species. It wrapped around his heart, squeezing tight. He fought for her, risked his ship, his life. And she needed him. Not just his resonance, but him. In the warm, pulsing silence of the cabin, surrounded by glowing alien eggs and the electric charge of the nebula outside, something shifted irrevocably inside Reese. The guarded walls he'd spent years building cracked, dust motes dancing in the golden light pouring through the fissures. He met Lyra's gaze, holding it, letting her see the turmoil, the fear, the nascent, terrifying tenderness. A partial payoff born not of passion, but of shared danger and desperate, vulnerable need. Reese sat on the floor of his cabin, back against the bulkhead, legs stretched out, watching Lyra and the eggs. Hours had passed. The ship drifted silently within the nebula's embrace, the external static a constant, strangely comforting white noise. Lyra's strength had slowly returned, fed by the energy of the clutch. Her glow was back to its usual vibrant, shifting blues and greens, though she still seemed subdued, conserving her power. She hadn't spoken much, even after he'd managed to reboot the translator by patching it directly into a ship's power conduit. Mostly she watched the eggs, occasionally touching one, her light pulsing in tandem with theirs. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken questions and the weight of their shared experience. He had to know. "Lyra," he began softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned her head, her obsidian eyes calm and deep. "Who are they, the ones hunting you?" Her glow flickered, violet shadows momentarily darkening the blue. "Scientists," the translator supplied, the word flat, devoid of emotion, yet carrying immense weight. "My creators, not parents. They engineered the lumina," she made a gesture that might have been affirmation. "We were anomaly, accident, energy beings given form, given potential." She gestured towards the eggs. This potential, life from resonance, they feared it, wanted to control it, contain it. Her light turned a cold, hard silver. "I was specimen, property, until I escaped." Reese felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Slavers were bad enough, but creators hunting their own creation, that was a special kind of hell. "So they want you back for study or dissection?" "Control," she repeated. "And replication, they lost the key to quickening, need catalyst signature, need template." She looked directly at him. "Need Reese." The implication hit him like a physical blow. They weren't just after her, they were after him too now. Or rather, the resonant signature she'd imprinted from him onto the clutch. His good vibes had just put a massive target on his back. "Great," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "So they won't stop hunting us?" "No," Lyra confirmed softly. "Not while Clutch exists, not while we exist." She flowed closer, settling beside him, her shoulder brushing his. The proximity felt different now. Less invasive, more necessary. "Comforting. Why me, Lyra?" he asked, the question raw. "Out of all the beings in the galaxy, why did my resonance work? Why did you choose me?" Her glow softened, warming to a gentle gold that reminded him of the eggs. She hesitated, then reached out, her fingers tracing the faint lines of worry around his eyes. Her touch was feather-light, tentative. "Felt Reese soul," the translator struggled, then settled on essence. "Hurt, guarded, like me, but strong underneath. Kind." She paused, her gaze searching his face. Safe, felt safe, safe. He hadn't felt safe in years, not since, well, not for a long time, and kind, he scoffed internally. He was a cynical freighter pilot scraping by on the edges of civilized space. But she saw something else. Something he didn't recognize in himself. The vulnerability in her confession, the sheer alien trust she placed in him, cracked something else loose inside him. Lingering fear, the adrenaline, the confusion, it all coalesced into a different kind of energy. A pull towards her that had been simmering beneath the surface since he first saw her shimmering form. He turned towards her, mirroring her position, knee brushing hers. The air crackled faintly between them. Her golden glow intensified, swirling patterns reflecting in his eyes. "Lyra," her name was a breath, rough with an emotion he couldn't name. She leaned closer, her strange, beautiful face inches from his. The ozone scent was intoxicating. He saw the pulse of light beneath her skin quicken, matching the sudden frantic rhythm of his own heart. Hesitation warred with a desperate, rising need to connect, to feel something other than fear and confusion, to anchor himself to this strange, luminous being who saw kindness in his guarded heart. He lifted a hand, cupping her jaw, feeling the cool smoothness of her skin, the faint vibration of her inner light. Her obsidian eyes searched his, questioning, waiting. Then he closed the distance. The kiss was tentative at first, a collision of textures and temperatures. Her lips, if they could be called that, were cool and smooth, yielding slightly under the pressure of his. There was no breath exchanged, only a sudden, intense surge of feeling pouring into him from the point of contact, curiosity, surprise, and a blossoming heat that mirrored the rising flush under his own skin. He pulled back slightly, startled by the empathic wave, but her hands came up, pressing against his chest, holding him there. Her own touch sent shivers across his skin, a low electrical hum that bypassed thought and went straight to nerve endings. Her eyes, dark and infinite, held his gaze, and he saw the gold in her glow deepen, bright, swirling with an intensity that stole his breath. This time when their lips met, it wasn't tentative. It was acclaiming. Her mouth opened slightly, and he felt not teeth or tongue in the human sense, but a soft, yielding pressure and a flood of sensory input, warmth, light, a taste like ionized air and something indefinably sweet, alien. It overloaded his senses, dizzying him. He groaned, threading his fingers into the cool, surprisingly substantial flow of her form near her head, pulling her closer. The deck plating felt hard beneath his knees, forgotten. The universe narrowed to this single point of contact, this exchange of heat and light and alien intimacy. She responded with an eagerness that bordered on primal, her body molding against his. Where human skin met her luminous form, his skin tingled, warmed, almost buzzed, as if her energy was seeping directly into him. She made a low sound deep in her throat, a resonant hum that vibrated through his chest, making his own body thrum in response. He broke the kiss, gasping for air he hadn't realized he was holding, resting his forehead against hers. Her skin felt impossibly smooth, cool despite the heat radiating between them. "Lyra," he whispered again, the name feeling right, fitting perfectly in the charged space between them. She tilted her head back slightly, exposing the pale column of her throat where the translator was clipped. The skin there pulsed with soft, rapid waves of gold and rose. He leaned down, pressing his lips to that spot, tasting the faint metallic tang of the device mixed with her unique scent. A sharp tremor went through her, and her grip tightened on his shoulders. The light emanating from her flared, momentarily illuminating the entire cabin in a brilliant golden pulse. He felt it echo within him, a resonant chime that settled deep in his bones. Her hands slid from his shoulders, exploring the shape of his back, his sides, learning him through touch. Her fingers traced the old scar tissue near his ribs, a relic from a bar fight years ago, and he felt a wave of gentle curiosity, a soft inquiry through the touch itself. He lifted his head, meeting her intense gaze again. Desire, raw and undeniable, coiled low in his gut. But it was tangled with something else, a profound sense of connection, of being seen in a way he never had before. He fumbled with the seals on his jacket, shrugging it off, needing less barrier between them. She watched his movements, her glow shifting, swirling faster, anticipation radiating from her like heat shimmer. He reached for the simple tunic she wore, the fabric seeming to almost dissolve at his touch, flowing away like liquid light to reveal the smooth, uninterrupted luminescence of her form beneath. Her body wasn't human, not even close, yet the slope of her shoulder, the curve of her waist where he tentatively placed his hand, felt exquisitely right. She leaned into his touch, her eyes half-lidded, the hum low in her throat intensifying. The air crackled with their mingled energy, the golden light from the eggs pulsing in time with the frantic beat of his heart. This was insane. This was impossible, and he'd never wanted anything more. He lowered his head again, seeking her mouth, surrendering to the alien heat, the overwhelming sensory flood, the undeniable pull of the catalyst towards its luminous, impossible source. The boundary between his skin and hers blurred, dissolving in waves of heat and light. Where he touched her, golden energy flared, sinking into him, warming him from the inside out. Where she touched him, it was an exploration, cool fingers tracing muscle and bone, learning his human form with an intensity that was both clinical and deeply sensual. Her touch sent sparks along his nerves, not the faint static from before, but deliberate jolts of pleasure that made him gasp. The translator lay forgotten on the deck. Words were unnecessary, obsolete. They communicated through touch, through the shifting colors of her glow, through the resonant hum that vibrated between them, rising in pitch and intensity. He explored the landscape of her body, fascinated by the smooth, fluid feel of her skin, the way light pulsed just beneath the surface, responding to his touch, shifting from gold to rose to deep, electric violet. There were subtle ridges along her spine, delicate sensory tendrils near the base of her neck that quivered when he brushed his lips against them, sending shivers through her entire form. She arched against him, a silent expression of pleasure, her hands gripping his hips, pulling him closer. The position was awkward on the hard deck, but neither of them seemed to notice or care. He shifted, maneuvering them until her back was against the bunk, his body partially covering hers, shielding her. The movement brought him into contact with the warmth radiating from the nearby clutch, a silent, watchful presence. Lyra's breath hitched, or the alien equivalent, as he settled his weight against her. Her legs, surprisingly strong, wrapped around his waist, locking him in place. Her glow pulsed erratically, a dizzying kaleidoscope of pleasure and overwhelming sensation. He found a spot just below her jawline where his touch elicited a stronger reaction, a visible wave of light surging through her, accompanied by a high, resonant chime that vibrated in the air. He kissed her there, learning her responses, mapping the geography of her pleasure. She writhed beneath him, her hands tangling in his hair, pulling his mouth back to hers. The kiss was deeper now, desperate, a fusion of energy and intent. He felt her need as if it were his own, a primal urge to connect, to merge, to solidify the bond forged in fear and ignited by vulnerability. He fumbled with the fastening of his own trousers, urgency overriding finesse. Lyra watched him, her dark eyes wide, luminous. There was no coyness, no human artifice, just raw, open wanting. As he finally freed himself, pressing against the juncture of her thighs, her glow flared blindingly bright, pure white light washing over them, erasing the cabin, the ship, the nebula outside. He felt her body arch instinctively, welcomingly. The entry was different. Not friction, not simple pressure, but a feeling of sinking into warmth, into light, into her. It felt like connecting circuits, a sudden, powerful surge of energy flowing between them, binding them together on a level that transcended the physical. A gasp escaped her, a sound that was pure sensation, and the light pulsed, emanating from their joined bodies, illuminating the small space in rhythmic waves. He moved slowly at first, overwhelmed by the alienness, the intensity. Her internal muscles, or whatever structure she possessed, clenched around him, not painfully but possessively, drawing him deeper. With every thrust he felt that surge of energy, that exchange. It was intoxicating, addictive. Her resonant hum built, climbing higher, faster, until it was a keening vibration that resonated in his teeth, his bones. Her fingers dug into his back, not with pain but with anchoring strength. He lost himself in the rhythm, in the swirling colors of her light, in the overwhelming flood of sensation and shared emotion pouring between them. It wasn't just sex, it was communion, a raw, elemental joining. He felt her climax approach, not as a physical tension release, but as a gathering wave of pure energy, visible in the blinding incandescence of her skin, audible in the rising pitch of her resonance. He met her surge, his own release triggered by the sheer power of hers, a shattering culmination that felt less like an ending and more like a fusion, a permanent melding of catalyst and source. They collapsed together, breathless, boneless, tangled limbs and shimmering light. Her glow slowly subsided, softening back to gentle blues and greens, but laced now with streaks of warm, contented gold. He rested his head in the curve of her neck, feeling the faint, steady pulse of her energy against his cheek. The silence returned, deeper this time, filled with the aftermath of intimacy, the weight of connection. He felt changed, marked by her light, by her touch. The eggs beside them pulsed gently, their golden light a soft echo of the intensity just shared. He was theirs, she was his. They were family, a strange, glowing, resonant, hunted family adrift in a hostile galaxy, and somehow that felt absolutely right. The aftermath was quiet, intimate. Reese lay curled on his side, Lyra nestled against his back, one cool hand resting possessively over his heart. Her soft, rhythmic glow washed the cabin in calming waves of turquoise and emerald. The harsh edges of the nebula outside seemed muted, distant. He could feel the slow, steady thrum of her energy, a peaceful counterpoint to the frantic pace of the last few days. Sleep tugged at him, heavy and inviting, but his mind wouldn't quite switch off. Creators. Hunters, eggs, catalyst, father. The words tumbled through his thoughts, less alarming now, more factual, accepted. He shifted slightly, turning to face her. Her obsidian eyes opened, watching him calmly. The translator was still discarded somewhere, but he found he didn't need it as much. He understood the soft inquiry in her gaze, the contentment radiating from her gentle light. He reached out, tracing the swirling patterns on her shoulder. "They won't stop," he murmured, the words raspy in the quiet. She didn't need the translator to understand his meaning. A flicker of violet, the color of worry, briefly shadowed her glow. She pressed her forehead against his, a gesture he was coming to understand as deeply reassuring, intimate. Together, the touch seemed to say, "We face them together." "We need a plan," he continued, thinking aloud. "We can't keep running forever. The bucket's old, she can't outrun that black ship indefinitely. And once the clutch hatches," he looked over her shoulder at the pulsing spheres, "they'll be even more vulnerable, will be easier to track." Lyra pulled back slightly, her gaze thoughtful. She extended a hand, palm up. A miniature galaxy of swirling light coalesced above her palm, intricate patterns shifting and reforming. She seemed to be accessing data, memories. After a moment, the light condensed, projecting a faint, holographic star chart into the air between them. It wasn't any chart he recognized. Strange symbols marked certain systems. She pointed a luminous finger towards one cluster, shrouded in what looked like permanent nebulae far off the established trade routes. "Sanctuary," the translator suddenly crackled from the floor, picking up her intent. Lyra glanced at it, then back at the projection, tapping the cluster again. "Hidden deep, Lumina refuge, others like me, escaped." Reese stared at the chart. "A hidden sanctuary, other Lumina." Hope flickered bright and sudden. "You mean there are more of you, you're not the last." A soft ripple of wistful blue passed through her light. "Few, scattered, hiding, creators relentless." She traced a path on the chart from their current position towards the refuge cluster. "Long way, dangerous, but safe if we reach." "Can we trust them?" Reese asked, the old caution flaring up. "Will they accept me?" "The clutch." Lyra's gaze was steady, certain. She touched his chest, then gestured towards the eggs. "Clutch is Lumina. Reese is bonded, catalyst, protector. They will understand, need new life, new hope, bonded, protector." The words resonated deep within him. He looked at her, at the impossible beauty of her shifting light, the strength in her alien eyes, the fierce protectiveness she radiated towards him, and the life they had inadvertently created. He thought of the hunters, the cold sterility of the creators she described. There was no choice, really. "Okay," he said, his voice firm. "Sanctuary it is. How do we navigate there? Those charts aren't standard." Lyra smiled, a subtle upturning at the corners of her mouth made radiant by her inner light. She touched the console where she'd soothed the nav compensator earlier. "Lumina navigate by flow, by resonance. Ship understands me, I guide." She looked at him, a playful spark in her eyes, hints of gold dancing in the blue. "Reese pilots, I co-pilot." He couldn't help but grin back, a real, unguarded smile. "Deal. But you don't get to touch the calf machine. Last time you soothed it, it dispensed something that tasted suspiciously like engine coolant." Her light pulsed with amusement. The easy banter, the shared goal, felt solid, real. They had a destination, a chance. It wouldn't be easy, but facing it together felt infinitely better than running alone. He leaned in, pressing a kiss to her forehead, feeling the familiar cool smoothness, the hum of her energy. Together. The journey to the hidden sanctuary was long and tense. They skirted the edges of known space, darting through asteroid fields, hiding in the sensor shadows of gas giants, always pushing the rusty bucket's aging FTL drive to its limits. Lyra proved an unnervingly intuitive co-pilot. She didn't read charts or calculate vectors in any way Reese understood. She seemed to feel the pathways through spacetime, guiding him with soft pulses of light directed at the console, gentle nudges of resonance that the ship's system somehow interpreted. Reese handled the physical piloting, the engine coaxing, the power allocation, while Lyra navigated the cosmic currents. They worked in tandem, a strange symphony of human know-how and alien intuition. Days bled into weeks. They fell into a routine dictated by the ship's needs and their own. Reese managed repairs, rerouted failing systems, and stood watch, while Lyra spent hours near the clutch, her glow mingling with the eggs, nurturing them with her presence, her energy. The eggs themselves were changing, the outer membrane becoming thinner, more translucent, revealing shadowy forms shifting within. They pulsed more frequently now, sometimes seeming to respond directly to Reese's presence, their light brightening when he spoke or came near. The hunters hadn't reappeared, but the threat hung over them, a constant tension humming beneath the surface. Reese found himself scanning the sensor logs obsessively, jumping at phantom readings. Lyra, sensing his anxiety, would often glide silently up behind him, resting a hand on his shoulder, bathing him in calming blue light until the tightness in his chest eased. Their intimacy deepened, evolving beyond the initial desperate joining. It became quieter, woven into the fabric of their shared existence. A brush of hands over the console, a shared look across the bridge, Lyra curling against him in the narrow bunk during his off-shift, her steady glow a comforting beacon in the dark. They talked, sharing fragments of their pasts. He told her about his restless youth, hopping freighters, learning the pilot trade, the disillusionment that led him to the solitary life of a scavenger on the fringe. She spoke, through the improving translator and her own empathic projections, of the sterile labs, the constant observation, the longing for freedom, the terrifying escape that led her to the wreckage where he'd found her. Cultural clashes still surfaced, often leading to moments of chaotic humor. Lyra's species had no concept of personal property beyond the nest, leading her to borrow his tools and rearrange ship systems according to her own resonant logic. He once found his favorite spanner integrated into an energy conduit, apparently soothing a power fluctuation. Her attempts at preparing synth paste resulted in a concoction that glowed faintly and tasted vaguely of cinnamon and ozone, which she declared a vast improvement. He learned her moods through the subtle shifts in her light, the sharp yellow of annoyance when a system resisted her soothing, the soft rose of affection when he brought her a nutrient pack, the deep violet of concentration when she navigated treacherous space. One cycle, as Reese was running yet another diagnostic on the flickering life support, Lyra approached him, her glow unusually bright, a vibrant mix of gold and anxious lavender. "Reese," the translator crackled. "Clutch quickens, soon." He looked up sharply, then followed her gaze towards his cabin. The light spilling from the doorway was intense, rhythmic, like multiple heartbeats pulsing in unison. A knot of excitement and terror formed in his stomach. "Soon? How soon?" Lyra tilted her head, focusing inward, then towards the eggs. "Hours, maybe less, energy peaks." She flowed towards the cabin, beckoning him to follow. He dropped the diagnostic tool, his heart hammering. It was time. Inside, the cabin was almost blindingly bright. The eggs were vibrating visibly, the translucent membrane stretched thin over the small forms within. Tiny, multi-limbed shapes could be seen tumbling, pressing against their confinement. Lyra knelt beside the nest, her own light merging with the eggs, creating a cocoon of pure golden energy. She looked up at Reese, her eyes wide, luminous, filled with anticipation and a touch of primal fear. She patted the deck beside her, an invitation. He knelt, his gaze locked on the nearest egg. A tiny crack appeared on its surface, a line of escaping light, then another. The hatching had begun. The hatching was chaos, pure and simple, yet utterly mesmerizing. The thin shells didn't break apart, they seemed to dissolve from within, melting away like spun sugar under a wave of intense light. One by one, the small beings emerged, slick and unsteady, blinking in the sudden brightness of the cabin. There were 6 of them. They weren't miniature Lyras nor miniature humans. They were something entirely new, a blend of both and neither. Smaller than his forearm, they had vaguely reptilian bodies that shimmered with their own nascent bioluminescence, predominantly pale gold and silver. Delicate, multi-jointed limbs flailed as they tried to orient themselves, and tiny versions of Lyra's sensory tendrils quivered, tasting the air. Their eyes, large and dark like hers, blinked open, unfocused but searching. Instinctively, they crawled towards the strongest sources of warmth and resonance, towards Lyra, and to Rhys's astonishment, towards him. One of the hatchlings, shimmering silver, stumbled over its own limbs and tumbled against his knee. It paused, tilted its tiny head and let out a soft, high-pitched chime, surprisingly loud for its size. Then it nudged his leg insistently with its head, seeking comfort, recognition. Rhys stared down, utterly poleaxed. A tiny alien baby, born from an egg laid in his bed, conceived by good vibes, was currently snuggling against his synth-fabric trousers like a space puppy. Lyra made a soft sound, a mix of awe and maternal pride. Her light enveloped the hatchlings, a calming golden wave. They responded instantly, their frantic movements quieting, their own faint glows stabilizing. She gently nudged the silver one towards Rhys. "Yours," she seemed to communicate through a pulse of warm light and possessive pride directed at him. He hesitantly reached down, scooping the small creature into his hands. It was surprisingly solid, warm, and vibrated with a faint energy, like holding a purring kitten made of light. It settled into his palms, its tiny tendrils exploring his fingers, its dark eyes blinking up at him. An overwhelming wave of protectiveness washed over him, fierce and absolute. This tiny, vulnerable life form was his responsibility, his kid. The other hatchlings swarmed Lyra, climbing onto her lap, nudging against her, emitting a chorus of soft chimes and clicks. She gathered them close, her glow softening, becoming intensely maternal. She looked over her brood at Rhys, her eyes shining. He met her gaze, holding the silver hatchling carefully. The cabin felt impossibly full, overflowing with light, sound, and burgeoning life. They had made it through the hunt, the fear, the uncertainty. They had found intimacy, forged a bond, and now life had sprung from it, alien and miraculous. Hours later, the hatchlings finally settled, nestled between Lyra and Rhys on the expanded sleeping platform he'd rigged up, their combined light a soft, pulsing beacon in the dim cabin. Lyra was curled against his side, her head resting on his shoulder, one hand gently stroking the back of the silver hatchling sleeping soundly in the crook of Rhys's arm. The exhaustion was profound, but it was overlaid with a deep, quiet contentment. They were close to the sanctuary now, just a few more jumps. Challenges still lay ahead, integrating into a hidden alien society, protecting their unique family from discovery, figuring out how to raise 6 bioluminescent, resonance-sensitive infants on a freighter. But looking at Lyra's peaceful, luminous face, feeling the warmth of the tiny life nestled against him, Rhys knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that they would face it all. Together. He gently brushed a stray tendril from Lyra's cheek. She stirred, looking up at him, her eyes soft in the dim light. No words were needed. He leaned down, pressing his lips to her forehead, a gesture of quiet promise, of shared future, of love discovered in the most unexpected corner of the galaxy. The silver hatchling in his arms gave a soft chime in its sleep, its light pulsing in time with their own. A new beginning, glowing bright against the vast, dark expanse of space.